All right, taping this Tuesday morning. Simmons family went to Hawaii for the last 6 days. You like how I snuck that by? You didn't realize I was gone. I'm really good at this now. That's why we ran the Costner and Bacon podcast last week. Costner was one of my favorite ones ever, an all-timer. Bacon was great too. Really enjoyed those. We are going to talk about the Yankees-Red Sox series and a bunch of political stuff in a fun way, not in a polarizing way, with Jacko. And then Michael Rubin's going to come on, who is the owner of Fanatics as well as a minority owner of the Sixers and all that stuff. So yeah, so I was away for 6 days during one of the most dead content times I can remember in the last few years. It was really, really nuts. It was kind of soothing in a way. It was nice. I missed the Tarantino movie. I'm behind on that. I'm caught up on everything else, but it was really fun. It's fun when your kids get to an age when you can travel with them, when they're not a complete pain in the ass and they're actually fun to hang out with. So good times all around. All right, we're going to call Jacko right now. All right, it is the end of July. There's nothing going on at all in sports, barely anything in pop culture, but we do have the baseball trade deadline, which used to mean a hell of a lot. And now it still means something, but I don't feel like it has the same fervor that it used to engender. Unless you're a fan of the Red Sox and the Yankees watching this whole thing. Jacko on the line. How are you, Jacko?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Our teams just went at it for 4 straight days. It had Boston Massacre potential. And then Chris Sale, the ace, our guy, once again came up short. Do you feel like the Yanks own Chris Sale now? What's your feeling going into these Chris Sale starts from a Yankee perspective?
Well, it's funny. I was down at some friends of mine have a cottage down at the beach, and I was down at the beach on Sunday. And it's with a bunch of guys, and some of them are Yankee fans, and some of them are Red Sox fans. And so we were talking about how horrid the Yankees had been, and I said, we were talking about it was a Sunday night baseball game, and I frankly was so disgusted I didn't know who was. I knew Herman was pitching for the Yankees, but I hadn't paid attention to who was pitching for the Red Sox. And so one of my buddies said, "Oh, Chris Sale's pitching," and I was kind of like, "Ooh," and then I thought about it for a second, and I was like, "Ooh." So it really didn't. A couple of years ago, that would have been like, "Oh, that's a loss. Forget about it." But not so much anymore because he's been a little shaky, and that was borne out on Sunday night. So, yeah, it doesn't put the fear of God into me that I once had.
Yeah, we have this trade deadline, and everybody wants the Red Sox to get, some closer, and Edwin Diaz is getting thrown around, although I don't think that's realistic at all. Shane Green, the immortal Shane Green, is in the mix.
Former Yankee.
Not sure that's that realistic either. To me, the bigger issue is the whole Sale thing, because Eduardo Rodriguez is kind of turning into the ace of the Red Sox. That wasn't really part of our game plan. I feel like they can patch together the bullpen and kind of hope and pray Evaldi can come back. But the Sale thing, I'm just flummoxed by, because when you watch the inning by inning, start by start with him, it's like the shitty guys in the lineup that end up getting him.
Yeah, Austin Romine hit one. Not to say he's shitty, but he's not a frontline superstar.
No.
Austin Romine went deep the other night, and
he went really deep.
Did Urshela hit one, or Urshela did something too? So.
Yeah, he had 2 bombs, and it's those are the guys that keep getting him. It's like he can't sustain it through the whole lineup. So, it's weird because this Red Sox team, the offense, the top 4 now, this 1, 2, 3, 4 we have might be the best 1, 2, 3, 4 we've ever had. Just like it's like just a gauntlet. And Devers is out of his mind now. And you go through that and you just feel like, how are we 10 games back or 9 games back? Now it's like 8 games back. But how is this even possible
9.
with these 4 guys? 9.
9
games. You had to be scared going through that gauntlet. The 4-game series.
10 in the loss column. Yeah, as much as Chris Sale did not put the fear of God into me, your lineup absolutely does. And for however many years, I've made fun of Hall of Famer Xander Bogaerts, except a guy sent me a tweet last week, and he's like, he might actually be one. And I was like, Jesus, he might actually be. And he's been out of his mind. And JD Martinez is phenomenal, and Mookie Betts is now heated up. So yeah, it's the top half of your lineup. Anyway, is very good. And Benintendi always kills the Yankees for some reason. He's sort of mediocre against everybody, but he lights it up against the Yankees, which is the opposite of what Aaron Judge does, where he's pretty good against everybody and awful against the Red Sox. So
yeah, Benintendi had hit this point where we were all kind of looking at each other going, wait, is this not going to happen? Because we're talking like a year-long sample size going back to last summer. I think it was like 160 games. He had 9 homers. It just didn't seem like he had the power that it seemed like he was going to have. He seemed like a fine player, but I was ready for this to be like Fred Lynn 2.0, and it was like, oh, man, this isn't happening. And I think he just got in his own head. Now he's starting to come out of it. But the guy for the Red Sox is Devers. Yeah, he's been big. The last 3 months, his stats are basically as good as any Red Sox hitter we've had really since I can't even remember. I've been on a whole bunch of text chains trying to figure out if he's the best young Red Sox player of my lifetime. How about that, Johnny?
Wow, I can't believe you're throwing your idol Fred Lynn under the bus.
I know.
Like you carried a Fred Lynn baseball card in your wallet. It. You may still to this day, and you're downgrading him for Rafael Devers.
So Devers is 22. He's still, I think, one of the youngest everyday starters in the league. And if you look at like what he's done the last 3 months, and not just like what the stats are, I could list all these stats for you. One of the things I think everybody hates about baseball now is it just becomes this.
Heavy.
We're like scientists, like giving our formulas. Well, if you look at the stats will back up what I'm saying. He's just hitting the shit out of the ball. And there was this one stat. Do you like the mile an hour stat? Where they talk about
on the StatCast, the hits, you mean?
Yeah, like how fast the ball comes off somebody's bat. I kind of enjoy that one. I think it's informative. And Devers, I think, has the best mile an hour ball coming off the bat, whatever the fuck that stat is.
Right.
But he's only 22.
It's one of those things like it's a new stat, but you have nothing to base it against, really. Like, because there's no historical perspective of like, that home run was 113 miles an hour, and you're like, wow, that's pretty fast. But like, I don't know, did Willie Mays hit one routinely 125? I don't know,
Yeah, it would seem
like it's good. You're hitting it hard. That's good. Do you want that? I mean, they do it on singles now too in Yankees games where Judge hits a single up the middle, and they're like, ooh, that was the hardest hit single in 2 months. Yeah, that's good. I guess it's good contact. You were right on it.
I think baseball is just so boring now that everybody has to figure out all these 124 miles an hour. It's like, okay, that sounds cool. So Devers, listen to this, Johnny. 79 games going back to April 25th. He's hitting 344, 385 on base, 641 slugging, 21 homers, 77 RBI. That's up there with
pretty good.
Just about any Red Sox streak we had. So I was like thinking, because my dad and I were texting about it. I was like, what's going on here? I feel like this is the best young guy we've ever had. And I went through all the stats. Fred Lynn, I think, was 23 and 75. Nomar, obviously, he was a little bit older, but kind of in the ballpark. But Mookie Betts really, 3 years ago is when he really took off. He was 23. Bogarts is only 26 now. But for what he's doing now, and I was thinking, like, is this George Brett? So I went back and I was looking at the George Brett stats from the 70s. And that's kind of who he reminds me of. Like, he might be our George Brett, Johnny. He might be in your life for the next 20 years. I would be ready.
Well, I hope he's not George Brett, because George Brett used to murder the Yankees. So let's
so
hope
does
he's
Devers.
Not George Brett.
It's a line drive machine. So
yeah, he'd probably be a pretty good backup to DJ LeMahieu or Gleyber Torres on the Yankees, I think. So
because I was thinking about,
he'd have a valuable bench role on the Yanks infield.
Well, I was thinking about, I think Betts will resign. I'm not worried about that. And Betts,
doesn't he want a Mike Trout contract though?
Well, I think he's probably worth it.
You're going to give him a Mike Trout contract on top of what you're paying Price and Sale and all the other contract, and you just gave Bogarts a big contract, right?
Do I have to pay for this?
Well, no, but fans do, buying tickets and what have you.
They're
not
doing
your personal money.
The
no.
fans are already getting milked with all this stuff.
All right.
I don't know. Why do I want to lose 26-year-old Mookie Betts? That's insane. I don't want to do that.
I know, but you're going to give him $400 million?
I don't think he's going to get $400 million, but
Well,
I bet he
isn't that
get
what he wants?
300.
I think he wants more than 3.
He's negotiating. It's funny that people are getting mad about him kind of, using the leverage that he has and be like, yeah, I'd love to come back, but blah, blah, blah. And people are like, why doesn't he want to? He should care more about coming back. It's like, who's playing the game? I think he's coming back.
If you think so, all right.
Listen, losing a 26-year-old free agent who has put up the resume he's had over the last 4 years is not good business in my opinion.
I mean, the other thing is, like, these guys can ask for what they want, but really they have a limited market. Like, the Yankees aren't going to bid on him because they have too many outfielders as it is and too many big contracts. So they're not going to be in the market for him. I mean, are the Dodgers, who are the big players? The Dodgers, the Yankees, or the Angels have any more money to throw at people?
The Angels, yeah. The Angels always seem to find an extra $300 million.
Right. So, like, I don't know where he's going to go to get his Mike Trout contract if the Red Sox are like, here's the number, like, here's what we'll give you. Go find more. I don't know where he's going to find more. So
I'm always worried about the dumbass Mets with this stuff because they're just like, it's like the old George Costanza. There's spotting dimes on the highway. They can't see.
But there's no way the Wilpons are signing anybody a $300 million contract.
Who knows?
No
they just traded for Marcus Stroman out of nowhere. They're not even a contender. I don't know what's going on with that team.
Yeah, but that didn't involve money. There's no way they're spending money.
They just took Cano's contract last winter. That was like one of the worst contracts in the league. I don't know what to expect from them.
That's true.
So,
that's because the GM represented him or represents him as an agent. So unless he represents bets, he's probably not going to get them on the hook for a lot of money.
Did you see that trade they made this week where they traded for the guy who was Wilpon's son's college roommate? It was like a dump trade. Yeah. And then the guy they got back was somebody's roommate.
God, they're so dumb.
The thing with the Sox, and I think the same goes for the Yanks, we're in this new era of the rivalry now where there's not the testiness. It was funny because the anniversary of the Veritek A-Rod fight was a couple days ago. And
yeah, I saw that.
And A-Rod, who I want to talk about in a second, was talking on the broadcast about how, during that time, which wasn't that long ago, the guys, it was so much less friendly and so much more adversarial than it is now. But, when you think about this, what the Red Sox have with Devers, Betts, Bogarts, all 26 and under. JD's, I think he's 30 now. And then, and Benintendi is under 26 too. And then on the Yankees side, all the young guys they have, and it does feel like the foundation of something, but there's just no bitterness. It's just something's missing. And basically what I'm trying to say is we need somebody to throw at somebody to really get this going.
Yeah, we need another, Greg Nettles, Bill Lee thing at third base.
We need an
or
incident.
Whatever,
Yeah.
We need something like that. But there's no more of that in the game because these guys, they're all buddies off the field and they're all just, there's not the rivalry like it once was. Except with CC Sabathia and the Rays, who he seems to hate. But other than that, and vice versa. But other than that, there doesn't really seem to be any bad blood generally in baseball.
All right, so let's talk about A-Rod because I think this is really important.
The national treasure, yeah.
I feel like 99% of the time I get it, just with anything. Even if it's not something I like personally, I get it. If there's some movie that's taking off and I was like, well, I didn't really like the movie, but I understand why this has become successful. Or a TV show. Like This Is Us. I don't watch This Is Us, but I get it.
Right. Sure.
I know why somebody like my wife would watch every episode of This Is Us and get into it. I don't personally like it. This A-Rod thing is the 1% for me. I don't get it. I've never really gotten it. And now I really don't get it because I had to spend 4 hours with him on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Not only do I not get it, I feel like
is,
I'm taking crazy pills. I think he's an abomination as an announcer. I really do. I don't mean to be super critical.
You and I talked about when he first was, I think it was actually when he was sort of like semi-retired or suspended or whatever, and he started doing postseason games on Fox, and he was doing the studio stuff.
Yeah.
And he was great. And we talked about like what a natural he was, and he knew like how to throw it to guys and segues and which camera to look at. And he was like almost like a better like studio host guy than he was as a baseball player,
right.
or as good as a prodigy. And for some reason, ESPN was like took that where he was like, I won't go so far as to say natural, but he was at least smooth at it, and they put him in the booth, and that I don't think is his strength, and he feels the need to like give his ridiculous strategy. He had this conniption fit earlier in the season. I think it was a Yankees-Red Sox game on Sunday Night Baseball because they didn't have somebody lay down a bunt in a situation where it was ridiculous to even contemplate a bunt, and he went on and on about it for like 2 innings. And I was like, A-Rod, get off the bunt thing. My God, enough.
I'm just stupefied by it. I remember that first year when he was good on the studio. I didn't think he was nearly as good as the second year, but the first year it felt like they had stumbled into something, and there seemed like to be something genuine about it. And then the second year, it seemed like he was just really trained and polished, and the fake laughing would open the mouth, and it was like, all right, now I get it. Now I guess he's playing the studio character. You can't play a character during a 4-hour baseball game when you're hanging out with 2 other people, and the funny thing is, I'm not one of those people who thinks the local announcers are better than the national announcers. In fact, it's usually the opposite, as you find out with your Yankee broadcasts. But the Red Sox...
I beg to differ on that. Yankee announcers are fine.
Well, what's the one?
Paul O'Neill and David Cohn talking about the '98 team. I can't get enough of that.
No, what's the one with Sterling and Susan Waldman?
Well, that's the radio. That's the radio, not the TV. Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, like the Red Sox radio guys, it's pretty rough. Their TV guys, when they have Eck and Remy and O'Brien all together, like it's actually really good and it's informative.
Eckersley's great.
Yeah, and I learned stuff. And then spending 4 hours with this crew, and A-Rod just, it's like they don't know what to do with him, so they make the whole broadcast about A-Rod. It's like, hey, A-Rod's here. A-Rod, remember that? Remember when that happened? Remember on that team when this happened? Hey, you must remember that from 2004. And it's like, I don't fucking care. I don't want to think about A-Rod anymore. I didn't like him when he played. Why am I thinking about him now?
I didn't see very much of the game because, as I mentioned, I was at the beach and then we left and I was driving home. So I only watched the very end of it, but I did manage to tune in to see the awkward part where A-Rod and Jessica Mendoza were actually almost negotiating a trade for Syndergaard.
Yeah.
Because he's an advisor to the Yankees and she's an advisor to the Mets. And somehow they're on a national baseball broadcast talking about other teams and their players. But he's like talking about how the Yankees could use Syndergaard. And he's like, hey, Jess, why don't you give us Syndergaard? And then she's like, well, what are you going to give me? And I'm like, are they actually negotiating a trade right now? Or like,
unbelievable.
And she didn't seem to have much of an understanding of who was on the Mets roster or the Yankees roster because she couldn't like list off players that she would want to have on the Mets. So, and admittedly, he may have caught her off guard, but I thought maybe she'd say, well, I'd want Gleyber Torres or whatever, but she was like, well, who are you going to give me? And it was like, oh my God, this is so painful. And it's never going to happen in a million years, so why are we wasting precious airtime even contemplating it?
Well, this is their signature broadcast, right? It's Sunday night. This is supposed to be the best of the best. And there's all this baseball stuff going on. Like the Marcus Stroman trade had just happened, which was one of the most confusing trades in recent memory because this was like one of the big chess pieces. This was the guy rumored to go to the Yankees.
Right.
And we have a 4-hour game where everybody takes 25 to 40 seconds between pitches. And there's just not a lot to talk about. I would have loved to have heard like a real nuanced conversation about, hey, what the fuck are the Mets doing? But that can't happen because Jessica Mendoza is an advisor of the Mets. Why the fuck is she in the booth? And then A-Rod, who's an advisor of the Yankees. What does he advise them with, by the way?
I don't know.
What do you think? They're really calling A-Rod and be like, hey, A-Rod, can you study some Shane Green tapes? What the fuck is going on?
He's out to dinner with J-Lo. He's like, hang on, I got to take this call. Cashman.
It's just so forced. It's these three people that would never be together under any other circumstances trying to pretend to have these conversations. And then if it's not bad enough, we come back from commercial and J-Lo and his two daughters are in the booth with a fucking birthday cake that says happy birthday. It doesn't even say A-Rod. They couldn't even like find 5 extra seconds to write A-Rod on it. And they have to do this fake false thing with A-Rod's just fake laughing and it's just super awkward and nobody's going to eat the cake. And then you're watching it going, oh, definitely nobody's eating that cake. Not one of them is going to even try it. And then 3 hours later, Pete Abraham, who covers the Red Sox for one of the papers, he tweets the picture of the uneaten birthday cake, which was then eaten by all the sports writers.
Right.
Why the fuck did that have to happen?
Well, all I can presume is that ESPN was hoping for some like celebrity crossover because of J-Lo, that was going to draw eyeballs to the game. I don't think that was going to happen. And maybe they couldn't get a cake that said happy birthday A-Rod because they were in Boston and they went to every bakery and they kept getting cakes that said happy birthday asshole or something on it, you know.
They should have gotten a cake.
Let's just leave the name off. Just put happy birthday
asshole. It should have been happy birthday two-time cheater and liar who got suspended for a whole fucking year. Why are you announcing games and why are you like America's sweetheart now? I don't understand this. Does Lance Armstrong get to come back now?
We went to get a cake and it said steroids on it again. So we're going to try another bakery. We're out in Worcester now, but we still are not having any luck.
Well, why is Barry Bonds an asshole? Wait, like, does Barry Bonds get to come back now? Like, I don't understand. Clemens?
Isn't he the batting coach for somebody, or wasn't he?
Yeah, but nobody likes Barry Bonds. A-Rod's in my life on Sunday night for 4 hours. The guy was as flagrant as anybody we had with the whole cheating thing. I'm just so confused by this. I really am. I honestly don't get it. I don't understand what happened with this.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird thing. He's got good PR skills.
They came
out guy, celebrity.
I wish you had seen the game because at one point they came back from commercial. Maybe this was when they brought the cake, and they had video of A-Rod's 50th birthday party, and it was just this. Must have been 20 seconds of A-Rod and J-Lo just dancing in a nightclub.
Nice.
And it's like, oh, and Matt Vasgersian, who, you know, that's another issue. But he's like, oh, A-Rod, still got the moves, huh? And Mendoza's just giggling, you know, probably getting texts about Marcus Stroman from the Mets GM. And I'm like, what the fuck? This is Red Sox have a chance to sweep. Why am I watching this? Who is this for?
Well, here's the thing, though. See, like, you do not care for A-Rod as from a Red Sox perspective, and I get all that, and just maybe just in a general perspective. But I am subjected to games on Fox with John Smoltz, who is the most anti-Yankee bias of anyone I've ever seen. To the point, I remember when they played the Astros in the playoffs, and they called it a ball on Verlander or somebody, and he actually groaned. It's to the point where Joe Buck was like, "Oh, you're groaning" or something, and he's like, "Well, as a pitcher, you really want to get that one." I'm like, "No, you hate the Yankees," and I had to watch like a 14-hour game from London, subjected to his 14-hour rants against the Yankees. So I can understand not being in love with the broadcasters because I have a visceral reaction to hearing that John Smoltz is going to do a Yankees game. And that visceral reaction is blind hatred.
See, I think John Smoltz is great.
Of course you would. Of course you would. Instead of having John, like when they play the other team, they should just have the other manager mic'd up and do the play-by-play because that would be about as fair. So I get your visceral reactions.
I have no idea if Mendoza is good because apparently she's really good on the College World Series. And as somebody who's been in TV situations where you can be with the wrong cast member sometimes, like there's no you can't overcome it. So I have no idea if she's good. She might be. She's not good on these games with those guys, and the crew is bad. And I just don't understand. Over and over again, we get in these situations with the national announcing team where they think entertainment has to be part of the package. You know, it's like, guess what? I mean, guess what? I'm watching for the game. Sorry. Like, just teach me stuff about baseball. I don't need to see clips of A-Rod's 50th birthday party. Sorry.
But see, this is what they do in every circumstance, though, because I'm not a big NBA guy, but I watched a good portion of the NBA Finals, and I've seen enough Drake shots to last my lifetime, or like Beyonce and Jay-Z courtside. Like, okay, they're at the game, that's good. I don't need to see their reaction like every 10 minutes. So I think every media thing is like they try to get a celebrity connection because, between the internet and all the various ways you can consume media now, as they say, there's limited market, so they're trying to expand it. A guy called, speaking of A-Rod and J-Lo in the booth, I listened to Mad Dog radio on the way home from work, and I was listening yesterday, and I didn't hear the call, but some other caller reacted to it. A guy called up and said, well, J-Lo has, 40 million followers on Instagram, so when she's on ESPN, like maybe some of her followers will tune into the game because she's going to be in the booth and then stick with the game. Like, I guess ESPN is banking on that logic.
I mean, that's honestly the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard in my life.
Of course it is.
So some 14-year-old J-Lo fan in Kansas City is going to be like, hey, I heard J-Lo might pop in the booth with a birthday cake. I'm gonna sit through 5 innings of this Red Sox-Yankees game. What is going on?
I know. I think it's
I'm so
asinine,
confused.
but people think that way, and maybe there's TV executives that think that way.
God. I don't know. I'm tired of fighting these battles, Johnny. All I can tell you is it was a long 4 hours. Let's take a quick break. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. All right. So we have to get your take on the Democratic political race.
There's a big debate tonight. I think it's like a 2-night debate because they still have like 25 candidates.
2-night debate. Who wins your unintentional comedy award so far through all this whole Democratic process?
Well, he's out of it now, unfortunately. But this guy Eric Swalwell, who was a congressman from California, I mean, he might be your congressman actually. I don't know. I think he represents part of LA, and he was just so bad at everything I saw him do, and forget about Viewpoint. He's just like so smarmy, and like everything he does is so forced and fake and cringy. I literally was like, I can't believe this guy has ever been elected to anything in any capacity. I understand it's certainly an overwhelmingly liberal district, but you can't tell me there's not some more authentic liberal candidate that could have beaten this guy who was just so bad.
So
he's painful to watch.
He's gone.
He dropped out. He's gone now. So, and the other thing I like is I follow politics a lot. Like I have my whole life, and I'm pretty versed in candidates and elected officials and what have you. They showed some pictures for this debate. I literally couldn't pick some of these people out of a lineup.
Yeah.
This guy that's like, used to be the governor of Montana. If that guy walked in my office right now, I'd be like, hi, can I help you? Who are you? He wants to be the president. It's not going to happen. I mean, come on. So there's too many candidates, and these people that do it, I mean, I understand why you do it because you can raise your profile and raise your speaking fees and everything else and, get your name out in the news. But it's patently ridiculous that you're doing this. I
think the funniest thing has been the Beto campaign.
Oh my God. Yeah. He's just
talk about nothing to say
now. Oh my God.
I don't understand what happened with that, but I think it probably came from just America's desperation to have some young, hopeful person who was the complete opposite of what the president was.
Well, it helped him that he was running against Ted Cruz, who
helped.
Most Republicans don't like, and he looks like Bobby Kennedy, and he had the rolled up shirt sleeves and the Irish last name, and everybody was like swooning that it was the reincarnation of Bobby Kennedy, and he narrowly lost to Ted Cruz. He did better than most Democrats would because he got a lot of press and a lot of favorable press, and did his tour of Texas and caught fire to some degree to only lose by 2 or 3 points. And so then somehow that was translated into this guy should run for president. And he got the Vanity Fair cover and he went out and ran. And then they were like, what do you think about climate change? And he was like, yeah, we really should think about that and talk about it. People were like, wait, what? No, we want to be the president. What do you think? And he's like, what do you think? Well, I know what I think, but I'm not the one running for president, champ. So how about some other answers? And he was kind of like, yeah, I'll get back to you. I'm going to be on my skateboard. And people were like, Jesus Christ, what are we doing here?
What do you think of the Mideast? So where's that again?
Exactly. Like, we should do something about that. It's a mess.
That's where all the oil is, right? Yeah, he had no takes. He had nothing to say. It would have been if we'd anointed somebody as the next Colin Cowherd, and then he came on. It was, it was like baseball trade deadline. Woo! Trades. Trades are crazy. It was so funny to watch him in the debates. Like he seems like it's like the old NBA. The second year I did the NBA draft joke, and this guy Bruno Cabasio got taken, and Fran Fraschilla said he was 2 years away from being 2 years away. That's kind of how I feel about Beto. And yet he's running for president. He's like fifth. It's like I can't name one thing he stands for.
No, nobody can. That was the problem. And now he's gone in the complete opposite direction where he's like, now he's going to be like the wokest of the woke. So he's basically like, America sucks and, everything's white supremacy. It's just, everything's awful. And it's like, come on, man, come back to us.
Well, he got a documentary out of it. So I guess that was a win.
Yeah.
The whole thing, he can show that to his kids.
And he lost his Senate race, and like if you read his biography, he seems like someone who's always been. He comes from a lot of money, and I think he has some guilt about that. He went to Columbia, and he had no real direction, and he's done like a million different things. He was in a punk band. He was like a nanny for a while.
Yeah,
he was in a hacker group. He's never really quote unquote had sort of a real job, and his father was in politics, so he kind of felt the need to go into politics. He got elected to city council, got elected to Congress, and like I say, he made a splash running against Ted Cruz, but. After he lost to Ted Cruz, he went on this like road trip around the country and was kind of like finding himself and sending out, sort of philosophical tweets. So it's like if he doesn't become president, I think Smart Money would say he's not going to be. I wonder what he's going to do now. Like, is he going to go backpack through Europe and write a book? Like, I don't know what's next for him.
I feel like the Ringer is possibly in this for a Ringer podcast. Figure a political analyst for the debates. Beto, what'd you think of that? Man, I mean, what'd you think? I don't know.
Not so deep thoughts with Beto on the Ringer Podcast Network.
Shit. I would listen to that podcast. That'd be pretty great.
He breaks down the best punk albums of the 90s. It's a pretty good podcast, actually.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the.
You know who my other favorite candidate is?
Yeah,
Marianne Williamson.
Yeah.
Also from your neck of the woods, who's like her claim to fame is she's like a guru, essentially, right? So she's like a guru, maybe she's like a life coach, but she's like the guru to the stars. So she has this philosophy of basically like preaching love and astrology or whatever, and she wants to be president based on never having been in any kind of elective office. She did preside over Elizabeth Taylor's 7th wedding at Neverland Ranch, though. So that would be an interesting resume for a president, but...
Well, I like the fact that everybody was allowed to be in the debates.
Right. Well, you had to meet certain thresholds. You had to raise like 60, I think you had to raise 50 grand, and you had to have so many individual donors. But you could skate that by getting like, if you ponied up $1 for somebody, that counted as a separate donor, and it got you towards your goal. So she did it.
No, you needed a head and 2 arms and 2 legs too. That was the other thing.
Basically, right.
They're very adamant about that. There was just so many. And then a couple of them were mad that their mics were allegedly turned off.
Yeah.
Which is like, yeah, because nobody cares what you have to say. That's why your mic was turned off, because we're all here for like the 5 people who might actually have a chance to be the president. The crazy thing, though, like the polls are even coming out today that Biden is like way ahead.
Yeah,
and then Sanders is second, and Warren's third, and Kamala Harris somehow fell.
Yeah, she had a big moment, and then
down.
She like couldn't sustain the momentum. And Elizabeth Warren has had sort of a moment too, but I think she and Bernie Sanders kind of fight over the same pool of voters, so they're kind of splitting that vote, I would think.
I mean, I thought
they need to attack Biden, because I mean Biden's going to run away with it, as semi inept as he is. He's going to run away with it because the vast majority of voters, I think, Democratic voters see him as the most electable, and because of the ties to Obama and the experience, and he's like the safest choice. I think usually it's going to be the next guy in line, and he's the next guy in line.
Trump has,
barring some epic collapse or somebody really like taking the reins and catching fire, to mix metaphors.
If it's going to be Biden, Trump has the napkin tucked into his neck with fucking steak knife and forks and steak sauce, and he's ready to roll. I mean, he has 90 different ways to go to be cruel and mean to Joe Biden. And he'll be doing all of them.
Probably. I mean, the interesting thing is, I know I'm going to get tweets about this, but if you look at the various metrics, the economy is doing pretty well. I know there's people left behind. You don't have to tweet me, and et cetera, and student loan debt and healthcare, yada yada. I know. I'm just saying generically, the economy is pretty strong. The country, I know we're still in Afghanistan, but generally there's no major wars or conflicts. Not to say Afghanistan's not a major war, but it's sort of a police action at the moment. So you talk about like general peace and prosperity. He should be like rolling to re-election, one would think, with a super low unemployment rate. And yet here we are because he's such a fucking moron and so polarizing that people generally despise him. That's why it makes it an interesting horse race, and that's why there's 25 candidates that think they can unseat them, even people that are barely recognized by their family. That's my synopsis. 2020 USA. God bless America.
I feel like this is going to get so ugly and so awful.
Oh God, yeah. It's going to be ridiculous how bad it will be.
I'm almost not prepared for it emotionally.
Yeah, it's going to be
because Trump's he's already ratcheted up 7 notches, and we're not even in August yet. And once it becomes clear Biden's going to be the guy, he's just going to bring out the missiles and everything and go right at him while also doing all the other stuff he's been doing. It's not great.
The interesting thing to me, and I've said this till I'm blue in the face on podcasts with you, but I always feel like I'm in a Twilight Zone episode when I like think about like that Trump is actually considered by people to be like this heroic genius, right? So I was recently with a group of guys, and we started talking about things, and they're smart guys, like smart, successful guys. I generally don't know what their politics are. And we started talking about politics, and somebody was this was like a couple weeks ago when Trump had his tweets about the squad, as they're called, the 4 congresswomen. And so I said, we were talking sort of generically, strategically, and I said, I think it's probably good to some degree from Trump's perspective to tie the Democratic Party with some of their views that are, maybe outside of the mainstream. And I said, somehow he sort of stumbles into these things. And these guys were like, no, he doesn't make stumbles because time and time again, he always comes out on top. It can't be stumbles. And it's like there's actually people that are smart and successful that really think like that he has some grand strategy that he follows, and like that he's like this master, general, like moving pieces on the maps to make everything fall into line the way he wants. And I'm just like, am I taking crazy pills here? like what? Really? So there are like sane people that, I don't think these guys were full-blown MAGAites, but there are people that think like, wow, he really knows what he's doing and things are working out. And I'm just like, wait, what? Huh?
It's a crazy like a fox.
Yeah, that people actually think like he doesn't just sort of like stumble over himself and like fall into some luck. That people actually think like he's had these grand plans and he's like this master businessman strategist or whatever.
I like when he gets defended, because almost all the time he's going after minorities or whoever in these dog whistle ways. But when you mention it, I'd be like, no, he's terrible to white people too.
Right.
That's like a defense. It's like, oh, all right.
Right.
So, yeah,
he's
you're right.
Awful in general.
Yeah,
right.
I didn't realize that. It is. I've never, Conspiracy Bill loves a good conspiracy. It is weird to have a president where everything's on the table with any possible conspiracy. Like, I have a friend who's convinced that Trump manipulates the market, where when the stock market's doing really well, Trump will say something about, I'm cutting off that trade deal with China. And then the stock market will dip because this person is convinced that he's shorting it the other way. And he's just basically controlling this yo-yo thing with the stock market and just making money both ways. And then he quiets down and it starts going back up. Like lately it's been good again. And my friend's like, watch this. He's going to say something crazy.
He'll do a trade war.
Yeah, he's doing
like, banning products from China or something, right?
But he does have the ability to do that. He can say something nuts and the market will go down. And then he can stay quiet for a while and it'll go up. And look, it's ludicrous. I don't think he's actually doing that. But as my friend was laying this out, I was like, yeah, maybe he's doing that. This is the president of the United States.
Right. Well,
I'm wondering if he's doing this.
I'm sure he's in this to make money, but the way he's making money is like through his hotels and everything, where foreign governments can curry favor by, buying out the top 10 rooms at some Trump hotel or whatever, and letting him know about it, or that when he does fundraisers and business at golf courses that he owns, and he takes the money from donors and puts it in his pocket, essentially. So I'm sure there's a lot of skim going on, but I'm not sure about the market thing, because he would probably prefer a high stock market. Maybe he could manipulate it to have it higher by the time of the election, but he wants it to be as high as possible because that's one of his talking points.
Yeah, but it's never cratered though. It's dipped, but then it rallies back. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe that's his thing, like a comeback. I mean, one of the things that the economy probably should be doing better, except for his asinine tariffs that are just, killing things in terms of trade. And, he keeps claiming, well, China's paying all this money. Well, no, they're not. It's the consumer that's paying more for goods from other countries. Like, China's not just going to eat that money. They're going to pass it on to people. So he has this, and then we have to subsidize farmers because they're paying higher rates to sell their goods in China. And then we kick in subsidies, and he thinks it's all working out wonderfully. But, so
who do you think has the best chance to beat him?
Probably Biden, honestly.
Oh my God!
I think if you had a Biden Harris ticket, I think that would be tough to beat, because I think Kamala, I always mispronounce her first name, Kamala Harris. I think she would appeal to the more woke brigade of the Democratic Party, and Joe would be seen as non-threatening to swing voters in the Midwest. See, that's the theory anyway. I think that would be a tough one for Trump to beat. I think Biden can compete as good old town, Scranton Joe, and like Pennsylvania and Michigan and places, Wisconsin, places that Trump surprisingly won last time, which was the difference maker in the election. But he doesn't seem like he's out of touch and too far to the left.
Do you think Biden is going through 2-hour sessions every day where they're training him not to put his arms around people?
Yeah,
and not to hug people.
Right. They just put a shock collar on him, and they bring in like a 20-year-old woman, and he wants to go hug her, and they just zap him.
Oh, who's that? Who are you? Is it no Are those your grandkids? No, Joe, no.
Exactly. Take him out, they tackle him.
They're just bringing all these different grandkids in as bait. Joe's like, so I'm not going to go over there, right? I should just wave, right?
Aside from all that, where he's just like, friendly Uncle Joe, where he brings up this thing about like nobody asked him, and he's just randomly brought up working with how well he worked with segregationists in the 70s or whatever. Like, if you were his advisor, you're like, no, don't bring that up. Don't say that. Maybe you did. Everybody, you're saying okay, even people of extreme views, we have to get along for the good of the country, but don't volunteer that. Don't bring that up in today's climate. How wonderful some segregationist senator from Mississippi was. Don't do that, Joe. Don't do that.
The thing is, he's in his mid-70s.
I know, that is the thing.
You're just like, come on. We all have people in our lives who are in their mid-70s or older. And it's just a fucking roller coaster ride. It just is.
Robert, the special counsel Robert Mueller testified last week, and he was not great at the testimony, and at times seemed a little lost, and he couldn't hear anybody. And I saw Jake Tapper or somebody comment on it, and he was like, well, he is 74 years old, and maybe he's not as strong as he once was. And I thought to myself, well, Biden's 78 and Trump is he's 70 something too. And I'm like, well, that's great. This guy he's not capable of testifying before Congress, but one of the two guys likely to be president are both going to be at that age too. Fantastic. Good stuff.
The Patriots have 78 or 79-year-old Bob Kraft, who celebrated the AFC Championship game by going to a weird spa in where was that, Kyle?
Florida, right? It was
Florida?
Jupiter, Florida? No?
Hopped on a plane, celebrated the title game, and, it's like, all right, the dude's in his late 70s, but yet both of the people running for president right now are the same age as him.
Right.
And the excuse for him is he's old, give him a break, come on, he's a widow. And yet, here we are with Trump and Biden.
And yet, here we are. Crazy times.
I don't know,
friend.
Johnny.
Crazy times.
Maybe we should just See, I think there's something to be learned from Beto's success, given his complete lack of credentials. People really want the next Jack Kennedy, right?
Absolutely.
So what we should do is we should find some like 27-year-old right now who wants to be an actor. Like maybe that kid in The Bachelor, Tyler. Everybody loves Tyler in The Bachelor. The
Okay, I don't watch
Bachelorette.
The Bachelor, but all
The
right.
Bachelorette, there was this contestant who made the final two, Tyler, former football player. A bunch of my coworkers are in love with him, including Mallory Rubin and Juliet, who did a whole podcast about how much they loved him. He's just got it. He's got something. We take that guy, we just put him through the Bobby Kennedy, Jack Kennedy training school.
Yeah.
Teach him how to talk like just in generalities, and he could probably, be a governor in 5 years.
Well, absolutely, no question. I mean, the country now, there's like so much hyper partisanship that, Trump says one thing on Monday, and you got the Hannitys of the world, and unfortunately, a majority of the Republican base that's like, yeah, right on. And then he changes his mind on Wednesday, and they're like, yeah, right on. If anybody that thinks otherwise is nuts. Like, so it's just like, it's like the old Jerry Seinfeld thing. You're rooting for laundry. So, if the guy had the guy could be completely vacuous, empty suit, and as long as he had the right party ID next to him, people are going to be like, wow, he's so wise.
It's like the Manchurian Candidate.
Right, exactly. That's where we are now. Like, it's just hyper partisanship, and it's even more so what they call negative partisanship, where it's not even so much like you love your guy necessarily, but you hate the other party so much. You're like, oh, I can't let those socialists get in there, or I can't let those fascists get in there. So it's, I got to vote for my guy, and because we got to beat the Nazis or we got to beat the commies. It's craziness.
Well, I think Trump's going to win. And
if I was betting money, I would say right now, probably, but I don't know. I find that so hard to believe. But I found it hard to believe that he was even running, and I find it hard to believe that he's the president, and all those things are true. So, so maybe I should stop believing.
I'm looking at the odds right now. 2020, he's minus 110. He's basically even. Biden's 5-1. Harris 6-1. Beto's 100-1 if you're interested in putting some down on that.
Wow, maybe he's got a comeback in him, the comeback kid.
Beto, should I bet on you? I don't know. Should you?
That's a good question. We should really look into that.
Let me think about that. Let me chew that over for a second. I think Trump's going to win, and then I think it's going to be like a LeBron Jr. thing where he starts laying the groundwork for Don Jr. to take over in 24.
Well, I think that's the plan, to the extent that they have a grand plan, and that's what's almost more frightening. Is there's two schools of thought as to like what happens with the Republicans after Trump. Like, is Trump like so branded the party now that they're forever a Trump party, or do they just pretend like, boy, that was weird, huh? That just never happened. Like, just move on and be like, let's forget all about that and just move forward.
It'd be like when Garth Brooks had that alter ego.
Yeah,
Chris
exactly.
Gaines, and then it's kind of happened, and then it was like, all right, so that happened, and that would just be an entire presidential term. Yeah, I think Don Jr. is starting to think about it, starting
I'm
to
sure
feel
that's
it.
the plan. I read somewhere, and I think I didn't finish reading it because I shuddered so much, and it said like Don Jr. is like the most popular figure in the Republican Party or something, and I'm like, no, that can't be true. Please don't let that be true. So he may poll super high. Who knows? They've been saying maybe he should run for governor against Cuomo or something. So maybe they're already grooming him.
Wow. Don Jr.
God help us all.
President Don Jr. Oh man, I'm trying to figure out where I have to move to. But
I know.
It just doesn't seem like any other countries are doing a lot better.
No, the whole world's on fire. It's crazy.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Everything, like the media is awful. The politicians are awful. Everything's awful. Yankees can't get a starter. There's nothing good going on.
Well, at least we have sports.
Thank God.
Johnny, next time we talk, can you catch up on The Loudest Voice? Because I really want to go deep dive into.
Absolutely, I promise. I will watch it. I will watch it. Absolutely.
One of my favorite shows. I also think that you need to watch 3 episodes of Euphoria. I would like your thoughts on that.
All right, that's my homework. Okay.
Don't watch that one with the kids around or looming or lurking in any way.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Johnny.
All right.
This is a pleasure as always. Talk to you soon.
Good times.
Michael Rubin is here. He's a part owner of the Sixers, and he owns Fanatics, which I would say is the biggest apparel boom of this decade. Is that fair?
We're a humble, small company that's just getting started with huge market share to gain.
Can we talk about the Sixers first and being an NBA owner? What year did you guys form the ownership group when you hijacked the Sixers for $280 million?
Well, we paid full value at the time.
Yeah.
We bought the team. A group of us bought the team in fall of 2011. It was great timing.
There was like 10 franchises for sale at that point.
It was good timing.
Yeah.
And the crazy story, I think most people don't actually know this. So Ed Snyder, who started the Flyers and owned the Sixers, was my direct next door neighbor for a good chunk of my life.
Yeah.
So when I sold my company, GSI Commerce, to eBay in March of 2011, Ed called me and said, hey, I want to come over and celebrate. And he comes over with a bottle of wine and a bottle of champagne and actually a bottle of tequila because he could drink a lot.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, you should buy the Sixers. I'm like, man, I got no interest in this. This team loses a ton of money. I couldn't afford the losses. And, I'm focused on my business. And I never thought about it again. And he's like, you know what, Michael? And he wasn't a basketball fan. He was all hockey. He's like, I don't want you to buy the team. And then Josh Harris and David Blitzer put together the deal to buy the team. And when I realized the economics were much different than I had thought, and then David Stern actually, really convinced me to, get involved.
That one, the Philly and Golden State were the two ridiculous ones. Golden State, I think, was like 400, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was a gigantic city that was growing in every conceivable way and had a ton of money and had great basketball fans.
Yeah. Look, Philly is an incredible sports market. It's
Yeah.
absolutely, without question, one of the top few sports markets in the world. And Philly fans are incredible, and they bleed for their team. So it's a great market.
Those are two good purchases. And now you look at, I don't know, heading into 2020, like what are the Sixers worth? Do you even think about stuff like that?
I don't think about it.
It feels like it's $2 billion per big market franchise now, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I don't I don't think, for me, I'm a business builder.
Yeah.
So whether it's Fanatics that, I bought Fanatics in 2011 back from eBay. It was a $250 million company. It's going to be over $3 billion in revenue next year. I don't think about, I'm not sitting here thinking about values. I'm thinking about what do you want to do with each business and how do you want to build it? And then I think generally good things follow.
So you're in a real ownership group where the people that are in there are all independently successful of each other. And I'm always fascinated when this happens in the NBA because ultimately one guy is the owner.
Definitely.
And that seems like that's gone wrong a lot of times, especially in the NBA over the last 20 years, where somebody put in a bunch of money, but they still don't really control anything. And within about 2-3 years, they're realizing oh, I basically just have season tickets and I own the equity in this team and that's about it.
Yeah, I think there's a reason in sports that one person is in charge, and that is the right structure.
Yeah.
I think without that, you end up with the league having to get involved and figure out how to fix fights that come up. So the structure of having one person that is responsible is absolutely the right structure. That's Josh Harris in our group.
Yeah.
He's the person that put the deal together. He's in charge.
But you're used to being in charge.
Yeah. But by the way, and we joke about it all the time. In my day job, which is Fanatics, Rue La La and Gilt, and Shop Runner, I am in charge. But I also started something called the Reform Alliance, where myself, Jay-Z, Robert Kraft, Meek Mill, Dan Loeb, Mike Novogratz, the family just bought the Brooklyn Nets, Joe and Clara Tsai, and Robert Smith, started this massive criminal justice movement. And I'm not in charge of that either, but I started it and I'm super passionate about it. So to me, you don't need to be in charge of something necessarily to be able to have tremendous impact on it. And I use the best example with the Reform Alliance.
How has there ever been a Sixers situation where there was just severe disagreement on a path for something? Like a trade or a free agent signing?
Yeah. Well, first, at the end of the day, we have a great GM in Elton Brand. He's responsible for basketball operations. Ultimately, Josh is responsible. I think, generally speaking, my belief for ownership in sports in general is that the time that ownership should get involved is on the things that really move the needle. I think often owners get involved in things that they shouldn't. I think you got to figure out how to make a really positive impact on what matters and then get out of the way for everything else. And so, in our group, Josh and David are very collaborative. I happen to probably be the only person from the sports business. I've been in sports my entire adult life. So for me, we bought the team in 2011 and everybody in the, around the organization, the league, or people I did business with already. So there weren't new faces to me. So I think, so it's an area I'm very comfortable.
Do you think that this decade there's been like 3 to 4 times as many rich guys who are just like, I want a sports team? Like there's been a trend? Because it seems like, especially when you think about how Golden State was available, and yet all those people in Silicon Valley who could have bought it, and then Lacob gets it. And that's one of the crown jewels of Silicon Valley, right? He's in charge of where everybody's sitting at the Warriors games and who gets to go in the little special club.
Yeah.
And it does seem like more and more, it's just harder to find a team. Like I don't even think there's more than 2 NBA teams for sale right now, and they're not even really for sale.
So I think the pace of teams that are available are actually consistent or even higher than they've ever been, but I do think there are more buyers. So if you look and say the leagues keep a list of qualified buyers, so they know exactly.
Yeah, I'm not on the list.
Yeah. No, I heard you were on the list.
No, I'm not there. I'll get there someday, but I'm not there.
We had you on the GM list.
Not qualified.
Yeah.
I got to do 200 podcasts a week, and I think I can make it.
That's fine. You just gotta. I mean, I believe in you. You can do this. Like, let's get motivated. Let's make it happen. Nothing's impossible. So each of the leagues keep lists of qualified buyers, because what generally happens when someone's not familiar with the sports industry, which most buyers aren't familiar with the leagues, the dynamics, they go to see the commissioner. They go to see a few owners. They say, "Hey, I'm interested in buying a team," and then the league will start qualifying: is this person real? Is it someone who want to be an owner? So I'd say, my belief is there's never been more qualified buyers of sports teams than there are today. But I also think the pace of teams for sale actually picking up a bit. In the NFL, if you think,
really want to name some names?
Look, we just had the Panthers sell in the NFL.
Yeah.
Obviously in Seattle, there's going to be a sale in the future. There's questions of what will happen in Denver. So, I mean, there's the teams sell. I mean, I think the pace is picking up. You got a lot of old owners across sports in general. And I'll tell you something that I think is really interesting. The smartest commissioners, they focus very much on making sure they pick the right owners going forward.
Right.
Because owners do have a big impact on not only their team, but on the success of the sport long term. And I think getting the right owners into each league is something that is super strategic for a commissioner. I think it's actually, a core responsibility of a commissioner to make sure they do that.
I think that's one of the reasons the NBA has been so successful in so many different ways this decade, is because they put actual thought into who was coming into the league, with a couple exceptions. But for the most part, I think they were bringing in a lot of younger, smart, self-driven business people who thought outside the box.
I think the NBA's done a terrific job.
You all get together in some giant room when you do your owner meetings or whatever, and there's actually good ideas and people pushing each other. I think that's what the NFL is missing right now. The NFL is a lot of old rich guys that own the league. And at some point, they need new blood and people that are thinking outside the box a little bit more. You don't agree? Well, you love Bob Kraft. I love Bob Kraft too.
Look, I could tell you, I think we agree on the NBA. I think as it relates to the NFL, I think the difference with the NFL is it's easier to own an NFL team because they make a lot more money. Yeah. And so one of the reasons, so I have 2 sports I love. I love the NBA. I love the NFL. Yeah. After that, there's nothing that I have huge passion about. And one of the reasons that I was so interested in buying the Panthers, even though I failed, was not only did I love it.
I forgot that you were involved in that.
And to be honest, I should have got it done. It was, I screwed it up. I didn't get it done.
What do you mean you screwed it up? You misread it, or
I think
it was like a poker hand. You didn't go all in on the right kings.
I'd say that. I think, first of all, I think Dave Tepper's going to be a really good owner. I really do.
And you hate him. You hate him, though.
I don't. I actually like Dave Tepper. I really do. Yeah, I think he's a good guy.
Deep down,
I think he replaced someone who needed to badly go. Yeah. Like I look at Jerry Richardson. He was bad for the NFL.
Yes.
He would. And there were people I look at, and Jerry's out of the league, so I'm free to speak on it. I'm not going to talk about current owners, but there are people where I just cringe when they speak, and Jerry Richardson was in that category. So I think they got rid of a really bad owner. They put a good owner in place in Dave Tepper. It was the process didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. I think the price that was paid for it was very fair and appropriate, and something that I would have, loved to get done at that value. So
that process, what is it? You're down to like the 3 finalists. How does it go? Are they just are they keep you in the loop? Is there somebody in charge?
Yeah, they I'm not sure that Jerry, at the end of the day, it was Jerry Richardson's decision who to sell the team to.
Right.
And I don't think I was the type of owner he wanted to sell the team to. That's just the bottom line.
Why weren't you the type of owner?
I just think, if
you're missing a couple of things in the checklist.
I don't think he desired to sell the team to me. It was that simple.
Who are you dealing with when you're trying to buy an NFL team? Are you dealing with Goodell? Or are you dealing with, is there a person who's in charge of
Yeah, in any of these situations, there's a lot of people involved.
Yeah.
And each league is different as well. It's what you might do with the NBA might be different than what you do with the NFL. They had an investment banker who did a really good job with it. Steve Greenberg of Allen and Company.
Oh yeah, they had the banker.
Yeah, and that's more normal than not. Sometimes the league will just get involved and help do a deal.
I think you got out good not getting the Panthers.
Yeah, I think for me,
Cam's having shoulder surgery. Yeah. I don't know.
It would have been a great situation. It was, it's a better market than people understand. And for me, what I was starting to talk about, and I didn't finish the thought, was like, for a guy like me who would buy a football team, I'd be going all in financially to do it. It's a ton of money for me to do something like that. And so to buy a team that makes real money is something that's very helpful. So when you go back to ask the question that we asked about difference in owners amongst sports leagues, one of the things in the NFL, these teams are so profitable, it may put less pressure on you to do other things.
But that could flip over the next 20 years, NFL,
Definitely.
NBA. And I think,
well, I think that's why.
I would say the NFL, you could argue it's at the peak right now.
Yeah, I look, I still am a big believer in the NFL, and I don't think it's at the peak. But I can tell you the reason that the average NFL team and the average NBA team have values that are somewhat similar today is because the NBA's got such a great growth trajectory based on. If you look at the NBA, you're going to say, look, it's a truly global sport. I mean, I can tell you that I traveled with the team to China this past October for a preseason game, and for me, I haven't been in China for 25 years. Last time I was there, I was making shoes as a kid. Okay,
Yeah.
So I go there, and in this experience, and Sasha's with me as well. This experience, Joel said to me, "Hey, let's go to the mall." So I'm like, "Okay, whatever. We're gonna check the mall out." And we're walking through the mall, and I've been, hundreds of places with Joel, and literally, I've never seen more people chase an individual than being in the mall with Joel in this luxury mall right next to our hotel. And I tell you this story only because the fandom in China is so incredible.
Yeah.
I think we had 50 million people watch our preseason game in China. 50 million people. Okay. Now, when you think about that,
football is not competing with that. I don't think.
It might be a couple 100,000 people who watch a preseason game in the NFL or something like that. So when you look at the NBA, you have great global growth, and China is this incredible market where the NBA dominates. I think the NBA has been incredibly thoughtful on really supporting players to speak on issues that are important to them to make the world a better place. I think it's actually helped the sport. So a lot of people were scared of that. I think Adam has really embraced it. I think it's been very good. And that's certainly, obviously, it's well known. That's my mentality as well. So I think we're very aligned on that. And so I think the sport is very well positioned.
And the players are just much more famous. And I don't know how that translates to the successes of the two leagues flipping a little bit, but the reality is, even somebody like Kawhi, who barely spoke for 8 years, is more famous than anyone except 5 football players right now.
I think that's right. And look, again, I go back, the NFL and the NBA, they're my two sports, the sports I love. In my dream situation, one day I wake up and I own an NFL and an NBA team in one market. That would kind of be nirvana for me.
Denver. Step in.
Yeah, I don't see the Cronkies selling the. I don't see the Cronkies ever selling their basketball team.
So,
and they're great guys.
I mean, this has happened before, where somebody was a minority owner. It happened with Joe Lacob.
Yeah,
where a team becomes available. They've kind of been vetted by being, a part owner of another team, and it just makes the whole process easier to grab a team.
Yeah, and people always talk about that. For me, to be honest, that I don't think that was ever really an issue because I've grown up. I mean, I know. Most owners in sports because of Fanatics. Remember, Fanatics is the largest retail in the world of licensed sports merchandise. I think people talk about Nike, Adidas, and Fanatics as the 3 exciting companies within the sports industry. We're revolutionizing retail. We've got this v-commerce model that's changing retail in a pretty significant way. So I know
You were
these people-
vetted.
I know these people really well.
Yeah.
So that there was never, an issue of,
What do you think about where we are with this league right now? I mean, we've had yet another summer where it just became NBA 2K and all these dudes switched teams. And I think we've learned over the last couple of years that even when somebody signs a new contract, that doesn't mean they're going to stay with the team. Like you guys did you sign Ben Simmons yet, or it's going to happen? It's about to happen.
He's not been signed yet, but certainly there's rumors that it will happen.
It's rumors that it will happen. I mean, I would assume it would happen. It's a lot of money. But now we're in this point where he could sign that giant extension. Then a year from now, be like, hey, dudes, I really want to go here. And in the old days, it would have been like, well, sorry, you just signed a deal with us. But now it actually seems like the players are controlling where they want to go, even when they have long contracts. Is this a good thing?
Well, I think for us, it is a good thing because the way I think about it is it's the question of what kind of organization are you building. And you said something to me when I walked in here about culture and about how people work together. And I believe, I think teams fall apart all the time based on people not, working well together. And to me, I think that's something, if your organization works hard on it, you can really, make that a strength versus a weakness. And it's easy. You have these incredible superstars who all have really strong personalities.
Yeah.
And getting people to gel is something that it takes works amongst the team and it takes, work from the organization.
So what I've noticed is it does seem a little generational because some of the people that work for the Ringer, especially the people in their 20s, are like, this is great. The players should be able to do whatever they want. Everybody should bounce around. What's wrong with this? Why we root for players, not teams. And I think that's one of the things that's definitely shifted the last 20 years.
Well, certainly in the NBA, I mean, we see it in our Fanatics business where you have fans of the players, and we see that. So I can tell you from a Fanatics perspective, we're like, this is the most exciting thing on the planet. You've got all these great free agents moving around. It's driving business like crazy.
Yeah.
Last year you had LeBron, and it was the biggest free agency move in the history of, in the NBA. And now this year you come back and you have move after move. You have Kevin, Kyrie, Kawhi. I mean, our jersey sales are just astronomical. So we love it. But if you go back to, the question you were asking from a basketball perspective, the way I look at it is certainly LA and New York are very popular free agent markets. Very obvious for all the reasons that are easy to understand. Philadelphia is an hour and 10-minute train ride, 30-minute helicopter ride from New York City. The taxes are 3% versus 12%. So when you're making $200 million in a contract, there's a lot of money, the tax differential of 8 points on a $200 million contract. And I think, Josh and Blitzer and Elton have built a real winning organization. And I think, I look at that as if you say there's 30 teams in the league and let's say half are not going to like it and half will like it. For my belief, I think these are things that, I think we can as an organization come out on the right side of that.
You don't feel like the league is hitting some sort of crossroads though?
I like where it's headed.
Just from a competitive standpoint?
Well, listen, I don't, first of all, the way I think about it is, the goal of any sports organization, whether it's the Patriots that we were just talking about or the Eagles or the Sixers, is to win championships. That's why you're there. I believe that the dynamics that are in sports today, I think that, in general, as an owner in any sport, I'd like the dynamics of the way sports are headed.
I just wonder the continuity of something. I mean, maybe it just doesn't matter anymore. Maybe it's just because I remember different eras where, in the 80s Celtics, the 80s Lakers, the 90s Bulls, even what Duncan and the Spurs had. And Duncan could have left in 2000. He didn't. But now you even look at the Warriors for the last 6 years. If you replace Barnes with Durant, it's basically the same nucleus of a team for 6 years. And I really liked watching them and I was used to them. And I think basketball depends at least a little bit on the continuity of the guys together. Now you could say, well, Toronto won, Kawhi was there a year. Yeah, sure. But I also remember last year when LeBron beat MJ's scoring mark and he did it in the Lakers and nobody cared. And it was a weird moment. And I do wonder, like, that connection. I feel it with Embiid in Philly. Like, Philly loves Embiid. I could see him retiring there. And if he was able to play 12, 15, 16 years and stay in the same place and make as much money as he would make, I still feel like that's more meaningful. But other people disagree with me.
But what I would say is for a well-run team, they're going to stay in one place.
Right.
And so, I think that's an opportunity. So I think,
I would say they might stay in one place because I think the Celtics are a really well-run team and they just lost 2 guys.
And the Celtics, look, Wick is a really good friend of mine. They are a really well-run organization.
It really depends on the player.
And then I think it's, again, I look at chemistry. I think so much in business. Like when you ask me, and someone asked me this question yesterday, like when you go to hire people, what do you look for? And one of the 3 attributes I said was people that play well in a team together.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to lead a team together. It's the same thing in business or in sports. If you take a bunch of great athletes in business and you can't get them to work together, your results are going to be shit. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, on the field, on the court, on the ice. So to me, chemistry and getting people to play together, it's something that a lot of people don't get. I'll tell you, look, it's widely known how close I am with Robert Kraft and the Kraft family. Probably the biggest thing I learned from him, and I studied, like I'm a sponge. Remember, I barely made out of high school.
Yeah.
I didn't go to college. So all of my learning is from having smart people around me and from being able to watch them. And I think the biggest thing I learned from Robert and Jonathan Kraft is they sweat every little detail of their business to keep it together. And it's not an accident, the dynasty that they've built. It's by leadership. Okay.
Right.
And yeah, you need to get luck and timing. But he hired his coach. He's had Tom Brady. These are 2 big personalities. They've kept them working well together. So I think that good. I could go through, and I would never do this, but I could go through and look at every owner of sports and tell you I could put them in 3 categories of perennial winner, in the middle, perennial loser. And it's easy and doesn't mean someone won't have good and bad runs within a long period of time, but it does start with ownership.
But then the flip side of that is you just have a team like the Lakers that's born on third base and is in LA and is one of the most famous franchises we have.
Yeah, and that's a strategic advantage.
They could fuck up for 6 years and still end up with LeBron and AD.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So the strategic advantage that they have and a couple other teams have.
I started by saying that if you're in New York, listen, I believe in sports. If you're in any great major market, you have a huge strategic advantage. And that's just, to me, and if you don't exploit it, then you're not doing your job.
See, I worry, I don't know. I worry we're heading for a reckoning because if nobody, we have 30 teams. So maybe we have too many. Maybe it starts there. But I don't
think there's any chance we have too many teams. I think if anything, I think
add teams.
I'm speaking on behalf of entrepreneur. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Sixers or the NBA. I think there is demand for more teams. I think, I think Adam could sell as many teams as he wants to sell, and I think the league could handle more teams. I don't think there's any.
The history says that's a bad idea, but I think they could add 2 teams.
Right, and that's what I think would be logical.
I think Seattle and Vegas would be cool.
Yeah, look, I don't want the NBA should speak on that, but I think the way you're thinking about it's logical.
Yeah, but I mean,
and these things take years and years.
Because my thing is, if we're at 30, we might as well be at 32 and have 16 per conference. But I wonder if there's a day of reckoning down the road where maybe we have relegation and stuff like that. And if you're just completely incompetent for years and years and guys are fleeing your team, maybe there should be a price for that because in soccer it works.
Yeah, I would personally love it.
Yeah.
Because to me, again, I always think that I'm going to outperform.
Yeah.
So, but, for the people that are on the, again, split the league in half. There's going to be half that hate that and there's going to be half that love that. I don't think, if you ask, the best owners in sports, they're going to say, yeah, we love the idea of relegation. Let's keep pushing people out, because they're not scared of being relegated.
When the owners get together, what are the dynamics? You have all these rich, successful, I would say high self-esteem people, and they're all in one place and they all think they're right.
Yeah. So for me, it's actually interesting because I don't participate as, Josh and David are the owners that represent the Sixers, but I probably have the most owner interaction because of fanatics. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not dealing with an owner in sports. And so I have a lot of people I learn and grow from and pick information from. And there are getting owners to work together is, also it's a core responsibility of the commissioner.
I enjoy all the little secret stories.
There are many of them. Yeah. You need to come in with like some Grey Goose and beer here if you want to get the secret stories coming out.
You've got to know Embiid pretty well.
I do know.
Give me one story about Embiid that would surprise people.
The story about Joe that would surprise people is he does not drink alcohol, and everyone thinks he does because he's got such a big personality.
Yeah,
I've seen him, and there were people think like everyone thinks he drinks, and I'm super close with Joe. I've seen him consume alcohol twice in his life, and I've been with him hundreds of times. He does not drink alcohol. He hates it. He's scared of it. And by the 2 times he did drink, which they scared me. I'm joking, obviously, but Joe doesn't drink alcohol. I mean, that's certainly, that's I don't know. I think a lot of people, I don't know if that surprised you or not. I'm getting some head shaking. Yes. Over here.
Kyle
Big
drinks
surprise.
alcohol over there.
Yeah.
surprise.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
But fortunately Joe doesn't. He used to love Krispy Kreme donuts, but he's over that. He's very focused on his conditioning now.
Yeah. Is that a real thing now? Are we going to get 35 pounds lighter Joel Embiid this year?
Joe is determined. I've talked to Joe. He actually just texted me as I was walking in here. He just got back from vacation, and he's I talked to him a few days ago. He's on a mission. I think he's on a mission. Listen, I could tell you one thing. Joel is, and I think we're so fortunate with Joel, with Ben. But you asked me specifically about Joel. Joel is a really smart and intelligent guy. Also, I think a lot of people might underestimate his intellect. When he went through what he went through last year, he's not just like, shit, we lost and let's move on. He's saying that's going to drive him like crazy to be better. And I think he also knows he's got a body he's got to take really good care of. So I think I'm a huge believer that he's going to I think his conditioning will be the best ever.
I honestly think he's doing himself a disservice if he doesn't think otherwise.
Yeah, but
I thought he was too heavy last year.
Yeah, but he'll get to whatever he thinks is the right place. But I know he's very focused on great,
especially with big guys. When you're carrying extra weight like that,
well, I can speak for that myself.
Yeah.
I'm definitely carrying some extra weight now, and it hurts me in every way I move my body.
When you're talking about a 7'2" guy, they're like a skyscraper, and the more weight you add, the more stuff it could screw it up. But I thought you guys at least should have made round 3 last year. And Milwaukee kind of had your number during the season. I don't know if it would have been as simple as,
I don't agree with that. I
Milwaukee.
think we actually had Milwaukee's number. But
well, yeah, Giannis was a problem for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, I was, look, here's the thing. Once you get the outcome like we had, you just need to move forward and say, what's next and how do you build and learn and grow from that? But certainly, it wasn't the ending that we should have had, and certainly we shouldn't have been in that position to start with. We should have just, we should have been in a stronger position and not come down to a lucky shot that I think all Philadelphia will see for the next, they'll imagine that shot until we get our first trophy.
We stole Al Horford from us.
I'm not feeling bad.
I didn't enjoy that.
That makes me happy. I mean, now that I know you really
Al
love
Horford's great.
Yeah.
I did not like Kyrie, especially year 2. I liked him year 1, but was happy to see Kyrie go. But I loved Al Horford.
Well,
he was a great teammate.
I'm glad that some misery is coming your way.
He was a great Celtic, and I look forward to the Celtics getting revenge. I feel like the Celtics aren't on your radar anymore. You've moved on.
No, listen,
to this mediocre Brooklyn team that they're going to have next year.
I'll tell you, I have huge respect for Wick as an owner. I think he's a really good owner. I think they built a really good organization. I think anytime you don't respect, first of all, Boston may be the most successful. I mean, I don't know that anyone's ever. I mean, how many rings has Boston got? You've got the Patriots have 6. Celtics have 1.
We have 12 this century.
12 this century, right? Yeah, I was just so you.
We have 4 times as many as the Yankees this century.
Yeah,
we don't think about last century with baseball. We just talk about this century.
Let me tell you this. So we just had the Blues beat your hockey team
in Game 7. Yes.
Yeah, and the sales were spectacular. You know why?
For the Bruins or the Blues?
For the Blues.
Yeah.
They were spectacular because that market had, St. Louis hadn't won a championship.
Right.
It was their first championship. It was literally as big as a hot market as we've ever had for Fanatics was the Blues hot market. And by the way, Toronto, what was incredibly painful for me to watch, was also spectacular. I mean, these were 2 great hot markets for Fanatics.
When you haven't won a title and you win that first one, you're spending at least somewhere, depending how much money you have, somewhere between $50 and $300 on T-shirts and hats.
Right. And
it's
most of that's coming from us as well, which we enjoy and appreciate.
I remember when the Pats won in 2001, we hadn't won a title in 15 years in Boston, and they won. I was just like, well, I'll what is it? I'll buy the SI set. I'll buy the hat. I'll buy the T-shirt.
So I'll give you an ownership story that you'll like, and this will resonate with you really well. So I've been with Robert at certainly last couple of years of him winning the AFC Championship games. And I've been with other teams when they've won, the NFC Championship game. And when you watch the Patriots win an AFC Championship game, they don't even care.
Yeah, we don't even look at this.
They're like, okay.
Yeah, we don't care about those T-shirts.
There's no celebration.
You lose money when the Pats win the AFC title.
Now I'm not even talking about the sports purchase. I'm just talking about the mentality of the Patriots, which is like, we're not here to win an AFC Championship. Yeah. We're here to win a Super Bowl. That's it, period, end of story.
Right.
And that talks about great ownership. I mean, there's focused on what's next.
So this is a good question for you. I've always wondered why people don't do this. They make the extra T-shirts and hats. They make them for both sides, not knowing how it's going to go.
Yeah.
And then the team that loses, they have all this stuff, and then they like send it to Africa.
Yes.
Why can't I buy that stuff?
So that's the way it used to work. It doesn't work that way. So just so you know, so Fanatics, and I think most people probably know the business, but it's the largest retail in the world of licensed sports merchandise. In addition to the Fanatics site, we also operate the NFL shop, the NBA store, the NHL store, the MLB shop, MLS store, and 300 individual college sites. So we make all of the championship merchandise in the NFL, in hockey, in baseball, and a lot of it in the NBA. And so the way it works today, and it's such a better experience, first, our business is really we've kind of invented this category of vertical commerce. It's kind of like if you think about like a Lululemon or a H&M or a Zara, they're like these great vertical brands, primarily brick and mortar based.
Yeah.
We're, primarily e-commerce based. Okay. So what that allows you to do is, in sports, there's moments that happen in sports every single day, and it allows us the opportunity to merchandise around those moments. So what we do for a championship, like the Blues when they're playing in Game 7 against, Boston, is we have printers in both markets. Everything's set up online, and then the second they win,
Oh, so you haven't actually made it yet?
there's very few merchandise that's made. So the only people we make merchandise for is very small quantities of merchandise that will go to stores for the first couple hours. Everything online is not made until the second there's a winner. So both the Blues and the Raptors were major, major hot markets for us. So everything online, the manufacturing starts the second they win, and then for retail, there'll be some very small orders if it's a Game 7, and that's the only merchandise that gets destroyed and thrown away. But it's a teeny quantities of merchandise, not meaning. I mean,
Yeah, but this is my
You're
point.
talking about thousands or hundreds of T-shirts.
But why is it
the
destroyed?
because the internet has allowed. If you just think about this, the internet's so efficient. Like those two hot markets were probably $30 million just in revenue over a short period of time online, and so we're able to really effectively make that merchandise as we sell and get to the customer and not have that waste and excess. And that's why Fanatics is such an interesting business, because we can see these moments happen in sports and then merchandise around them without having to waste inventory.
All right, I get all that, but why can't I buy like a Lakers 2008 NBA champion
Because they didn't win.
T-shirt? I know, but I would wear that around the office because I hate the Lakers. But you guys didn't fucking win.
Listen,
This
I'm
is a
going to
fake
tell you what I'm going to do
T-shirt.
for you.
That's
I'll probably get a legal letter for someone, but you pick the T-shirt that you want in the next championship. I will send you the winning T-shirt of the team that lost.
This is a true
I will
story.
do that for you.
This is a true story.
I will do that for you.
2000,
So long as it's not anything Sixers related. That I will not give you the pleasure of.
2002, the Super Bowl, February. We beat the Rams. I'm leaving the Superdome, and they're selling stuff for both teams because this is before the Fanatics era. And I bought this Champions Rams mug and T-shirt. And then I wore the Rams T-shirt for like 6 years. And it was like my favorite T-shirt because it was like, fuck those guys.
So
I'm telling you, this should be a market for you.
Yeah,
like the Toronto fans should be wearing Golden State Warriors 2019 NBA champ shirts right now and just like getting the hugest kick out of it.
I'm not sure.
I'm spiteful Bostonian.
Here's the good news. We've gone from $250 million in 2011 when I bought Fanatics back to over $3 billion next year, and we're just getting started.
This sounds like another billion.
We've got a lot of growth without focused on the wrong team that didn't win.
Despite the spite purchases, the joke purchases.
Yeah. We're not. I mean, we're not going to. Yeah, we're.
You should have on your website. It should be spite purchases.
Maybe we'll give you a license. We'll let you run the spite section.
We have a Rams fan at the Ringer. I absolutely would have given him a Rams Super Bowl champion shirt. Be like, sorry, this is as close.
Listen, I do. You've got one a year per. Now you can take. You got 4 champions per year. You get one per year. You tell me what it is, and we'll give you a losing team, and you can torture one person.
We're in a slump now. We haven't won a title in like 6 months.
It's tough. I mean, I feel bad for you.
Heading into August. It'll be 6 months. Kyle, we gonna be all right?
We'll be all right.
The Pats haven't won a title in 5.5 months. I mean, they haven't had another Super Bowl, but it's still, you start to. It's going to get a little jumpy.
The only thing I really want to happen is that I just don't want the Patriots and Eagles to play again against each other because that puts me in a really difficult situation. So that's the one thing I want to avoid.
Yeah, I want
each team to win the Super Bowl.
Fascinating road for the Pats.
Look. To me, if I, sold my stake in the Sixers one day and owned another team, and they play the Sixers, I'm not rooting for the Sixers. I'll be rooting for the team I own. Robert and Jonathan Kraft are literally their family to me. So I don't, it felt wrong. That's what I could tell you. I really hope that they never play each other again in the Super Bowl.
What's the most surprising apparel trend that you don't understand right now?
The most surprising apparel trend that I don't understand right now. That's a great question.
Or maybe there's no trends.
No, there's lots of trends, but I understand them. The question is trying to think of one that I don't understand that doesn't make sense to me. The trends that are driving business right now are logical trends. I mean, for us, by the way, if you go back to really how we've grown so much as a company, I mean, the first thing is think about you grew up in Boston, right?
Yeah.
Now you live here in Los Angeles. If you went out to buy a Celtics jersey or a Boston Red Sox jersey, you're not going to be able to find that. So the first thing Fanatics did was captured anybody who lived out of market, who was no longer be able to buy that inventory in the new market they live, whether it's their school that they went to college at, or their pro teams. That was a big market for us. So just kind of fulfilling the unmet demand. And then the whole license industry was always, you really think about Nike, Adidas, Under Armour. These are great performance brands. They really partner with the leagues and teams because they want to elevate, their brand to sell more branded footwear and apparel. And so they didn't chase the business, the license business, the way we do. We wake up and go to bed every day obsessed about how do we maximize every sale in the licensed sports business. So I think for us, what's been incredible is we've seen so much growth through making merchandise that wasn't previously available to people that were out of market, and then to really, just have whatever the fan desires. And the way we've built our supply chain is to really be able to, in real time, meet the demand of whatever moment gets created. So I don't think
the immediacy would be the big trend.
So talk about Kawhi coming to the Clippers.
Boom.
5 years ago, that couldn't be capitalized on. Now that's going to be an enormous moment for us. And the moment that the NBA, proves, each of these transactions, we're out there selling that merchandise.
So Kawhi, he signed today.
Yep.
So when can you have the jersey out?
I don't have my phone,
the next
but
day?
I'm assuming it's today. I'm assuming it's live. Saj's going to take a look right now to see if we can buy a Kawhi jersey yet, but I'm assuming it's already. I mean,
what about a Terry Rozier Hornets jersey? Maybe not. You don't rush order that one.
So I'll tell you something really interesting. In the NFL, the way it used to work is Nike made players jerseys for about 5 players per team, and we actually went to the league 5 years ago and said, look, there's 1,700 guys to play in
that's bullshit.
a given year.
I never liked that.
We want to sell all 1,700.
Yeah.
And so now we make all 1,700. So if you go to NFL Shop or you go to Fanatics, you can buy any player anytime. We do the same thing in the NBA. We do the same thing in hockey. So again, that's why, Fanatics has really helped to better satisfy fans, because fans want different things. And you've got to be able to give the fan whatever they want. The home model, the away model, the alternative model, men's, women's, kids. And by the way, players get hot and players get cold and somebody get injured and, things change. And so the idea that the way it used to work, you bought your inventory a year in advance and guessed who was going to, what teams would be hot and what players would be hot is a
now
complete...
you flip it.
Yeah, now everything's done in real time.
You should start making the Westbrook Heat jersey right now. Just put it online.
Yeah, you can get them.
Get him?
Yeah. So he's more focused on getting the... Can we get him the...
So the Kawhi are there.
Yeah.
You like that?
No, I think
we're on it.
I think it's a really interesting time because I even remember 2 years ago, my son's name is Ben. So he's Ben Simmons.
Love it.
And when he was all excited for him to go to
Has Ben Simmons met Ben Simmons?
They have met, and there's a picture of them together.
Good.
I don't think taller Ben Simmons was as excited as shorter Ben Simmons, but
tall Ben Simmons is a good guy.
No, he is a good guy.
He loves his fans.
So when he got drafted by the Sixers, my Ben Simmons was like, I want Ben Simmons.
Actually, by the way, I told Ben Simmons last night I was doing this, and I told him he should, because I was with him at dinner last night. I was going to actually drag him in just to be funny.
I've met Ben Simmons. Yeah. He's a good guy.
You could have had him. You could have had him this morning.
That would have been great.
Yeah. He's far more entertaining than me.
So
he might not talk about Fanatics as eloquently, but
my Ben Simmons wanted the Ben Simmons thing. We had to order it, and it took like a couple weeks. It seems like even in the last couple years,
faster.
It's faster.
Yeah, because the way it works now is we bring blanks in of every team, and then we keep them domestically and we print them on demand. So the way it used to work is you might have had to make the blank first. Now we have blank jerseys here for each of the teams. And then you can print them as you go.
What about the ones where teams people want to make their own jerseys, but it's kind of a fuck you to the team, or
well, you can't make your own jersey.
Like Dolan sucks, and you get a Knicks jersey. You have to we
have lots of things that you can't do, and certainly.
So do you have somebody who vets all that stuff?
It's done with technology, and the leagues give you words as well that you can't use, and then once every year you screw something up and you get screamed at, and that's just part of the business.
So people are trying to get through the censors
every day. We had God, I shouldn't even bring this up, but we had
No, this is great.
we had a horrible situation with the tragic. Who is the I'm embarrassed, the animal who passed away in the zoo a couple years ago. Yeah, and so we were without getting into which league it was. We were customers were making them like crazy, and then the league told us to take them down. Then fans went crazy, and the league said to put it back up. And we people get we create some good social media banter when people are unhappy with some of the things that we either screw up or the leagues ask us to do.
What about like
situation.
Chinese jerseys?
Yeah, I mean we have in the NBA we do different versions that
Like
have
the letters and stuff?
Yeah. No, certainly one of the big risks in our business, one of the things that we fight against very much is counterfeit. And there's a big problem with counterfeit in the licensed sports business, and that's actually really enabled through marketplaces. The most counterfeit merchandise is sold through Alibaba's, eBay's, Amazon's. I think all these places are working to clean it up right now, but it's been a big problem of kind of illegal merchandise, not authorized, not properly made, and that's something that us in the leagues, always want to make sure that we're protecting fans from that.
Do you think the throwback jersey thing that's kind of tailed off?
No, I think it's good, and I think license is actually going through a really strong period now. We see tremendous momentum in the business, and one of the things we think about actually is how do we grow the overall category, because the global category of licensed sports is about a $25 billion category, but apparel is about $1 trillion category.
Right.
So what I think about is like share of closet. So I'm looking around in this room right now, and I don't see any licensed sports merchandise we got 6 people, no licensed sports merchandise. So we got to think about how do we. I see some headwear behind me. No one's wearing it. We got to think about how do we keep, growing the share of closet? How do we get more? How do we bring new categories?
Kyle can attest. My closet has a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah, I get stuff.
Kyle got a lot of freebies for me from stuff I have, I've had from the past. The problem is when you hit your 40s, it's a little harder to be like, I'm going to wear my Red Sox jersey today.
God.
My friend Daniel, who's like in his 50s now, he still wears Red Sox jerseys and we make fun of him. I do feel like there's a point. Some people don't care.
Yeah,
I'll still wear mine from time to time.
I never wear jerseys ever, but I wear lots of licensed sports merchandise. I wear great T-shirts.
It's weird for us to wear NBA jerseys after like age 42.
I've never been one to wear jerseys myself. I'm just not that cool. Or
football jerseys have stayed pretty cool for the most part.
But we sell. I mean, we sell more jerseys than anybody in the world in all the sports. But our job again is to maximize each category of merchandise. So we don't just want to maximize T-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, and headwear. We want to figure out how do you get new products into the marketplace.
So the hoodies have gone way up. Last like 5-6 years.
I'm a big hoodie. By the way, I generally wake up and go to bed in a hoodie. I'm out of character today.
The hoodies are, I would imagine that blew up.
And by the way, you got to keep making better hoodies and elevate hoodies. And I even had someone, by the way, this weekend in Vegas, someone talked to me, actually Meek Mill said to me this week in Vegas, like, Michael, you got to do a collaboration with Off-White. And literally he's like, I want to reach out to the guy. This is a great idea. Like we should be doing Off-White licensed sports merchandise. So I was like, Meek, it's a great idea. Literally just like, so that's an idea. How do you grow the market? So it's a perfect example of literally 3 o'clock in the morning, Meek just gets on his performance. We're talking about Fanatics and, Meek is now an owner of Lids, which we're partners in together with him. And all of a sudden he's talking about Off-White and I hadn't thought about it, but he thinks from, kind of that kind of fashion forward, perspective.
What is the most popular hat right now? Style?
Yeah, most popular hat would definitely be the New Era 5950 hat, which it's the classic hat. It's the baseball hat that's on field, the NFL hat that's on field, and that's still the number one hat.
And that's been number one for a couple of years?
It's been number one for a long time. It's been number one hat for a long time.
Are there Fanatic stores?
Yeah. So our business, or
you just you have satellite places.
So it's interesting. We started only as an e-commerce site.
Yeah.
So we started with Fanatics, and then NFL Shop, NBA store, NHL store, and MLB store. And then what happened is the e-commerce business kept growing and growing. Owners were coming to us say, hey, we need you to operate our venue because we want to give an integrated experience to a fan so that if a fan walks into a stadium, they want to be able to buy it online at the league store and pick it up in the stadium or be in the stadium if the stadium's out of merchandise. Hey, they can use the online inventory to service that fan. So we now have about 50 individual venues that we operate. In San Francisco, we operate most of the teams in San Francisco as an example.
Yeah.
And so it's about again, next year will be over $3 billion. It's about a $200 million piece of our business. But it is growing nicely. And I think it's very strategic to best servicing the fan. We are also a large investor in Lids, which is the largest licensed sports retailer as well.
Have you noticed like what those little Amazon pop-up stores, like they have a couple in LA. It's like these small spaces and you basically order online, but they have a couple sample sizes.
Yeah, I haven't
was
actually
wondering,
seen
like,
them in
what-
person, but
It's an interesting model. I don't know if it works, but
Yeah.
it's definitely noticeable.
yeah, I haven't spent enough time to really understand. I can tell you for us, we want to make sure that we make the merchandise that the fan wants available in whatever channel they want. So whether they want to buy it online, whether they want to buy it mobile, whether they want to buy it in an app, whether they want to buy it in a venue, whether they want to buy it in a store, whether they want to buy it, at a bookstore, whether they want to buy it, in whatever, that's, our job is to grow the market. For me is, an entrepreneur who, we have this company that's, I'm trying to think about how do we get it from $3 billion to $10 billion over the next decade. So the most important thing we need to do is keep growing the category and get a bigger share of that $1 trillion apparel market.
Is Amazon a competitor, a partner, or both?
So Amazon today is a competitor. They do sell licensed sports merchandise. I'd say most of the better products, you can't buy at Amazon.
Yeah.
The leagues want to sell them through their own direct-to-consumer business and through their, kind of their strategic retailers.
That makes sense.
I do think as a big growth strategy for Fanatics long-term, we believe that every global marketplace from Amazon to Alibaba to eBay to Walmart, who we just did a deal with here in the U.S., to Coupang in Korea, to Rakuten in Japan, and so on. Each of these marketplaces, over time, I think you'll see Fanatics, making a broad assortment available through these marketplaces because we want to be where the customer is. But it needs to be, we think very much about our brand showing up in the right way, and it needs to be brand right for us. I mean, we're responsible for the intellectual property of the sports leagues. That's a huge responsibility, and you need to make sure when you represent their brand, you do it in the right way.
Have they thought of, now that it's just a merry-go-round with the NBA every year, did you see there was a stat? Steph Curry has been on the NBA team the longest out of anyone in the league. And Giannis is in eighth.
I did not see that.
Yeah. Klay Thompson's like third. So somebody buys a jersey, you buy your Warriors KD jersey. Some dude who loves KD spends $200 on a jersey and then KD's gone in 3 years. Is there any sort of exchange program that we could do?
There is. So American Express came to us together with the NBA, and we created a jersey assurance program with them that we started in the last year or two, and it's been incredibly successful. I think you see Shaq in the commercials with the NBA American Express jersey assurance ads.
Yeah.
And that was something that we did together with the NBA and with American Express, and I think it's been an incredibly successful program. I think it gives fans extra comfort, and so I think it's been a really good program.
So like Kyrie, the Brooklyn Kyrie jersey, I would get that one insured because who knows with that guy. I mean, a year and a half from now, he might just be like, I've always liked Miami. And that's it. He's gone. You're just smiling at me because you can't say anything because you're an owner.
Well,
I just don't trust any of these guys. I think they could hop teams tomorrow.
I think people can hop teams, but I think that, it's an organization's responsibility to, to do everything they can to create the right culture where, people working well together. So,
or the guy has people around him. I'm not saying Kyrie, but just anybody. Like you've seen these guys all have the 5, 6, 7 people around them.
Yeah.
They're all like, why aren't you getting more shots? Why aren't you the guy? And I don't know.
There is some of that. I'll also tell you something that I've been really impressed with, and I mean this with complete sincerity. I think the NBA superstars are the most sophisticated and smartest and most advanced that they've ever been. Like when I think about conversations that I have, there are so many NBA superstars that are hitting me up about business opportunities. And I'm having like really intelligent conversations with guys about this. And people are like, even this weekend, I was with a couple of people and they care deeply about business. So I love to see, athletes in general, and certainly in the NBA, these people becoming real strong business people. And I think it makes them better on the court as well, because if you have such a good, if you start to develop good business sense, I think that helps you be a better player as well, because you just learn to win even that much more. But I think the NBA superstar has never been more sophisticated and more intelligent. And I think making really good decisions on their own. And look, there's always special situations, but this is a smart group of guys.
I think that's why KD and Kyrie went to Brooklyn. I think the business, because on the surface, it makes no sense to pick the Nets over the Knicks. The Knicks are a 70-year franchise with 100 times as many fans playing in the most important NBA building we have.
Team was bought by Joe and Clara Tsai. He's a co-founder of Alibaba.
Yes.
He's built one of the most important companies in China. He's by the way, they're my partner. We're competitors on the court.
And you just told me
and
how many people watch.
By the way, they're my partner in the Reform Alliance. They're a major contributor in the Reform
Alliance.
You
just said 50 million people watched a game in China.
So, and to me, I believe any sports organization that I want to be involved with, I think should always be on the right side of that. That should be an advantage to us.
Yeah, I think that was a huge asset for them. And those guys go there and they're looking at it not just as a basketball decision, but as not just Alibaba, but also like Rock Nation and all the stuff they're trying to do. And they, I think, really sold them on a whole overall thing.
Look, Rock Nation's in. I got to tell you something. I didn't know anything about Rock Nation until 2 years ago. We got into a forced. I don't know if you really understand this. We got into a forced marriage because, Meek Mill was one of my, closer friends, and I sat next to him in court the day when I thought he was going for a 15-minute routine hearing, and I watched him get sent to prison for 2 to 4 years for not committing a crime against the recommendation of both the DA and probation officer who said he shouldn't be sentenced. And I literally, they took him away to prison, and basically I started crying. He started, tearing up. And I looked at him, I said, I'm not going to stop till I get you out of prison. Well, sitting right next to me was this woman, Desiree Perez from Rock Nation, who kind of runs Rock Nation. And Desiree said, I'm not stopping. I'm like, who are you? Who are you? And we joined forces. And I got to tell you something, going through what I went through with the past 2 years with Rock Nation, they stepped up for Meek in a way that I think most people would not step up for somebody. So I can tell you, and someone just asked me about Jay. I didn't know, other than to meet Jay socially, 5 times in my life before, a year and a half ago, watching the way they stand up for things that they believe in this world, whether they're, nothing to do with sports. Just when Jay sees something that he thinks isn't right, they're going to go deal with it. When 21 Savage was in prison, for really for no reason, he went and just said go fix it, and it got fixed. So it's interesting to see the inside of Rock Nation, because I've gained so much respect for kind of the core values of how they think.
It is a weird time as we head into next decade. You're signing an NBA player, and you're not just trying to entice them with the organization and the city. Now you have to bring all these extra things to the table, I feel like, which isn't a bad thing.
So I think what I generally hear from athletes, from the best athletes, forget about the NBA, just stars in sports, is the first thing they want to think about is, are they going to go to an organization where they can win championships? Most strong competitors, they think about that first.
Yeah.
Okay. 2, how's the chemistry going to be with the people they're going to play with? And this is any sport. 3, how do they think about the organization? Is it a winning organization? Okay. They're smart. They're evaluating the same way a sports team evaluates a player. A player is evaluating the quality of the sports organization that they're going to go to play for money. But generally, there's a lot of people. The money almost works itself out because there's multiple people willing to do that. And then they'll look at a city and say, is this a good city to be in where I can get additional business opportunities? What's going to be my endorsements? So I think that, and that's why I said I've never seen more sophisticated athletes and stars than there are today, asking all the right questions. The internet, social media, it's educated people in a way that we didn't have 10 or 15 years ago. The world's changed a lot.
I agree. And when they enter the league, I think the league has done a good job of looking out for them coming out of the gate and teaching them a couple things.
But I think about it with my daughter. I mean, my daughter, the access she has today, I mean, she'll come ask me a question, and if I don't want to answer the question, she's got it from the internet in 2 seconds. It's not like it wasn't that way when we grew up.
True. So you seem very confident about the Sixers Celtics thing. I'm just gonna say, don't count us out.
Don't count us out. Let me say this: I'm not confident of anything.
Don't count us out.
I'm not confident in anything because my mentality in life, in business, personally, in sports, until you've accomplished your goal, you haven't done shit. I just might like to banter with you a little bit, and I do the same thing with Wick. Wick and I we have ongoing bets. I had to last season after we lost the playoffs, I had to literally send a helicopter with how many cheesesteaks to Wick? Dozen cheesesteaks because we had a bet on cheesesteaks. I didn't want to squelch on my bet. So after they beat us, I had to fly cheesesteaks to them.
What?
Was it lobster rolls or was it cheesesteaks? No, we got lobster rolls if we won, yeah. So
lobster rolls.
High stakes bet.
Overrated in Massachusetts.
Yeah, well, he got the cheesesteaks. He said they were delicious too. And I think
cheesesteaks not
everyone
overrated.
in the office enjoyed it and said Michael Rubin's, feeding us warm cheesesteaks because, the Sixers did it in advance against the Celtics.
Thanks for coming on. This was fun.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
All right. Thanks to ZipRecruiter. Don't forget to go to ZipRecruiter.com/BS. All right. We'll be back later in the week with another podcast. Until then.